Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest. Absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old-timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs.
Hey y'all, welcome to today's show. This is Memorial Day, and I always like to start the show with just saying, please remember this holiday. Well, I hope you have a wonderful time, and just have a great time with your family and friends, and really the people you enjoy being around. Memorial Day comes right after Pentecost Sunday, which is a feast day. So there should be certainly some festivity, but always remember this is the day for our fallen soldiers. This is the day for those that didn't make it home. So stop and remember the sacrifices that were made so we can have our freedom, so we can be here. And as I always say, be the people that they died for. And looking at what's going on in our culture right now, I gotta tell you, I'm not sure their sacrifice was worth it in large extent. We have really let them down. So it's time we turn that around. So that's the seriousness for today. And like I said, do enjoy. The other side of that is they allowed us to live in peace and to be with our family. So don't take that for granted either. Don't get so somber and everything, but do take a little time to remember what it's all about. So anyway, let's get into today's show. This is, we're going to do the herb safflower today, which really isn't that much used in modern herbal medicine, and it's a very useful herb. I think you'll be very surprised by this herb. But before we do that, we'll get into the recipes. Now, I guess, 4 or 5 weeks ago, I talked about poke salad. This is the greens of the poke or Phytolacca americana plant, which are absolutely delicious, one of my favorite wild edibles. But I failed to say much about the shoots of poke. And this just occurred to me the other day because here in the mountains, the poke is just coming up. It's just barely coming up. And the shoots come up first, and they can be eaten like asparagus. Down the mountain, been spending a lot of time down the sand hills, depending on, around Fayetteville. So two very distinct climates. I mean, it's been getting like into the 90s in the sand hills, and we're still in the 40s at night, up in Linville. It's just, yeah, it's different. So down in the sand hills, the poke by the roadsides is already up. I mean, it's up, 2-3 feet. And you can still harvest the top leaves, but it's way too late to harvest the shoots. Now in the shady areas, yeah, there's plenty that's just just right, just up maybe 4 or 5 inches, just got a couple of top leaves. Basically, the rule of thumb is you don't eat poke once the purple has spread to the leaves, or beyond that, the stalk beyond that shoot stage, which is really just when it's 3-4 inches tall. That's about it. And you may be surprised to know that until recently, even through the 70s and early 80s, canning those poke shoots was actually an industry in some areas, and you could buy poke in the grocery stores. It was really common. I don't know why it ever fell out of favor. Very nice. And one of the another plant that's coming up right now in the shoot stage is jewelweed or touch-me-not. We've talked about touch-me-not as a medicinal herb, just like we have the poke. Poke's a great lymph cleanser. Touch-me-not is the go-to for poison ivy. I mean, it's like the very best thing. The shoots of the touch-me-not can be used like an asparagus. Those are both really good. And the similar is fairly, the flavor is fairly similar, actually. I think poke has more of a sweet green pea flavor to it. So really, a nice way to do these, since we've got a lot of our spring greens coming in, and we may have some peas, we may have some early garden peas in some areas, but way too early for that where I live. In some areas, you may be hot enough you're getting beans and corn. I mean, I'm seriously, they're at the grocery store. I guess they're getting some corn from South Georgia, parts of Florida. Really nice sweet corn. It surprised me how good it was. So I've been enjoying that. But it's still, this is early, late spring. We're not quite early summer. It's a great time to have what they call a composed salad, where you're using these various elements. And the classic is the French salad niçoise. Salad niçoise is so good. Usually it is made with blanched green beans as one of the main vegetables. I mean, you might have some sliced tomato on there. You definitely have some sliced onion. You're going to have some lettuces, some various greens, and then along with that, it could be anything from canned tuna to sardines to really nice seafood. You can put some smoked oysters on there. You could put just some sautéed shrimp. You could do really anything you like. It's one of those salads you can do anything you like. You make a nice vinaigrette, serve it up, and really it's generally a heavy in the fish salad, and it's traditionally eaten before tests or when someone has to make a speech or something. When you're going to use a lot of mental energy because they say fish is brain food, and it always has boiled eggs. It can really be made from whatever is fresh in the garden, and you just arrange it prettily on the platter, or on the plate. You want olives. Olives always go with a salad niçoise. Maybe a few pickled mushrooms if you wanted to do that. I don't know. Let's see. What would be the classic recipe? Well, the classic salad niçoise. Oh, potatoes. Yes, I absolutely forgot the potatoes. Yes, white potatoes or small red potatoes, green beans, any kind of salad greens, especially small ones. It's more of a spring type of salad. So lettuces, spinach, definitely. Ridiculous dandelion greens would be absolutely perfect. Tuna or another canned fish, a nice fatty fish. Boiled eggs, black olives or like a Kalamata type of olives, cherry tomatoes, that's very classic, and anchovy. Yeah, anchovy fillets usually goes on there. Um, so yeah, it's just basically a fresh vegetable salad that actually has potatoes and beans in it, blanched and served. And well, I guess you want to boil the potatoes a little bit. You want to do more than just blanch them. But that's it, and then you do a nice mustardy vinaigrette to go over the top of it. And I've got, well, these recipes are all in my book, The Omnivore's Guide to Home Cooking. But, this is what I do for a vinaigrette. And I mean, this is an easy way to use up things that would otherwise be wasted. Whenever I make mustard, and I do like to make my own mustard, or I buy mustard from the store, I always get a type I like, whether it's a Dijon or a whole grain mustard, maybe with some horseradish in it, whatever. Creole mustard is really good. Um, there's always some left in the bottle, right? Or the jar. Well, that is an emulsifier. It can be used to make a nice vinaigrette. We talked about this last week's show, so I'm just going to say it again. Just throw in that jar or bottle some oil and vinegar, whichever you like. Red wine vinegar, white wine vinegar, sherry vinegar. Heck, use apple cider vinegar if you like. I wouldn't go with white vinegar, white distilled vinegar. It's just too, it doesn't have a good flavor. Tarragon vinegar is very nice. Vinegar that you've steeped tarragon in or another herb of your choice. Um, The oil I like to use olive oil. Again, that's up to you. You can use anything from clarified butter to walnut oil to duck fat. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. Whatever you like. Crush some garlic, a little Worcester sauce. Um, yeah, salt and pepper to taste. Shake it up. I usually do some crushed red pepper and parsley, and maybe a sprig or a pinch of another herb, whatever I might have on hand. That's my vinaigrette. Shake it up. The mustard makes it come together. And that's a wonderful salad. And in this salad, yes, you can use green beans if you want. You can use asparagus. That's a very traditional ingredient, just blanched or steamed, sautéed, put right on there. Or the poke shoots and the touch-me-not shoots. You can do a mix of garden vegetables and wild spring edibles. I think you're going to absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And a great thing to have with a nice fresh salad like that, especially if you don't have a lot of seafood to add with it and you want a little more hardiness and protein. I love chicken livers. And the other day, I was at a Piggly Wiggly grocery store. They carry Springer Mountain Farm chicken, which is the only commercial brand of chicken I will buy because it's really high quality. It's the closest to a backyard chicken you can get, and they do it the right way. It's humane and it's healthy and it's clean. And I know the owner, Gus. I mean, I don't know him, but I have spoken with him before. Great guy, solid, decent, good Christian guy, and it really is the best chicken you can get from a grocery store, unless you have, a local chicken farmer who does things the right way. This is the next best thing to a backyard chicken. Um, at Piggly Wiggly, you can get a pound of chicken livers for like $2.99, and that's actually gone up in the past year or so. But still, it's pretty cheap for a pound of chicken livers. And then they have a coupon at the register for $1.50 off. So for $1.50, you get a pound of chicken livers. I've told you before, that's the best deal you're going to get on chicken livers. I mean, even if you raise your own chickens, unless you're collecting and saving up a lot of livers, if you want a bunch of livers, you probably have to go buy them. The dirty rice is one of my favorite recipes. I love rice, and I love chicken livers. So just get some celery, onions, garlic, bell pepper or hot pepper. I like to use a poblano, but I may even use a serrano or jalapeno. Chop it up, sweat them down in some olive oil, put in your livers, cook your livers, mash everything up, mix in some cooked rice, and let it come together. You can also cook all this with your rice. I mean, that's actually a little better and more authentic. But I was just thinking maybe you had some leftover rice you wanted to go with the salad. Now, that's easy. That's an easy way to use leftover rice. And it's a meal that's going to cost you, 50 cents at most? Leftover rice, a few vegetables, sweat them down, cook your livers, mash them up, mix everything together. Um, you might want to just kind of put that in the oven for a few minutes, just let it come together covered. But if you want to do things the more traditional way, which is what I usually do, you cook everything with the rice. But again, it's the same process. You just saute down your vegetables, you cook your livers, push all that to the side, put your rice in there, toast it up with a little bit in the oil, add some chicken stock, and cook the rice in there. Mix it all together, and it turns looks like dirty rice. The chicken livers give it that dark brown gray color. So either way you do it, it's going to be good and wonderful on a warm day with a nice salad. And yeah, I mean, those composed salads can be made of just about anything, and they're really, really good and very good for you. So now let's get into safflower. Safflower has a history of use more than 4,000 years. It's, let's see, I'm going to try to pronounce this one, Carthamnus tinctoris. Safflower was used in ancient Egypt as a dye plant and used in the preservation of mummies. In Pliny the Elder's time, it was used as a food crop and as a substitute for saffron. So this is another one that has culinary use as well as medicinal use. The great George Leonard Herder said that many flowers, the stamens could be used as a substitute for saffron, which comes from the crocus, and it's very expensive. It's still the most expensive spice on earth, worth far more than gold by volume and weight. But saffron is one that can be used as a substitute. it's still pretty tedious to pick out those stamens with tweezers and get enough to actually use. But this is one you might want to grow in your garden. It's a lot easier to grow than crocus. Basically, it grows a little taller. You don't have to get down on your hands and knees. Um, we know it as a common cooking oil, safflower oil. It's been used. That oil has been used in everything from making margarine to being used as a fuel. I mean, as a diesel type fuel in the world wars. Seriously, really pretty, very pretty flower. You could grow it in your garden, and it's really easy to grow. But the medicinal use of the herb is not talked about a whole lot. Going back to Dioscorides, he called it, I'm going to say Cnicus. I don't know, Nicus. The C's probably silent. We'll go with Nicus or something. I don't know. He describes the plant, and he actually mentions that the flower could be used like saffron. So that's a very long use in there. He said the flowers were very good to use in sauces for meats and vegetables. The seed bruised and the juice with honey water or the broth of a hen, chicken broth, used to purge the intestines. It is bad for the stomach, so you don't eat it like a vegetable. He said that it could be included in a marzipan for essentially constipation. A candy made of it could be used as a laxative, essentially. The liquid of it mixed with almonds, saltpeter, aniseed, and boiled honey. We don't use saltpeter, potassium nitrate so much anymore in modern times. It was quite popular in the ancient world, but I don't see any reason the saltpeter had to be in there. So crushed almonds, almond flour, essentially. You know how you make marzipan? It's made with almond flour, aniseed, honey, and the safflower. I mean, he said you must divide them into four parts about the size of a carria. I don't know. He's saying basically make little candies of them and take three before supper. You must prepare it as follows. Combine 1 pint of white canicus or safflower, 3 cups of almonds roasted blanched, 1 pint of aniseed, a tablespoon of the saltpeter, and the flesh of 30 dried figs. Now that's going to be quite a laxative as well. The juice of the seed thickens the milk and makes it more laxative. So in this case, the pressed seed was being used to thicken almond milk, essentially. And it's very, very interesting. We'll have to experiment with that sometime. I mean, it would certainly be tasty. The almonds and the figs, anise. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Culpeper listed safflower as wild saffron, which can be a bit confusing, as Gerard listed several plants under the name wild saffron, some of which were crocuses, like actual saffron, but apparently he used daffodils as well. And daffodil can be pretty toxic, fairly toxic anyway. I don't know. Maybe the stamens aren't. I'm not going to recommend it. Definitely, we should do some research into that one. But Culpeper, his description of wild saffron or safflower, as opposed to Gerard, actually does seem to be safflower. So I'm going to skip Gerard, and I'm just going to go to Culpeper. In his time, it was very much used for dyeing silk, and the seed was used medicinally. He said it is a pretty strong cathartic, evacuating tough, viscid phlegm both upwards and downwards. In other words, it would work as a laxative and make you puke. So, pretty strong plant. And by that means is said to clear the lungs and help the phthisic. That's that word I cannot pronounce from Old English. Phithisic. Phthisic. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce that one, but I will tell you what it is. It was associated with tuberculosis. It was often called consumption or wasting away, and a person affected with this would have a wasting or consumptive condition. So, really ridiculous word that we don't use anymore. Comes from the Middle English where it was spelled T or something like Tsisike, Tiski. I don't know. But it comes from, that actually comes as Anglo-French from Latin phthisicus. But that was the old Latin for tuberculosis, and apparently comes from an older Greek word, phthistikos. So I don't know. Tuberculosis is a whole lot easier, and consumption is a whole lot easier to pronounce than that ridiculous word, Phthisic. So anyway, safflower was used as a purgative, an epicac, out of both ends, I guess you would say, to help clear phlegm and congestion for those suffering with consumption or tuberculosis type condition. Miss Grieve says the plant is not in any way related to saffron, by the way, although it is so widely used as a substitute for saffron, even to this day, that not all the saffron that you get is legit. A lot of it is counterfeit. It's not from crocus, but it is from safflower. Apparently, it has been widely cultivated and used in Ayurvedic and traditional Chinese medicine for thousands of years. Safflower flowers were used in Miss Grieve time, 1931 or so. She published her book, and the action is laxative and diaphoretic, so it would help, move the bowels and help with fevers. In domestic practices, the flowers are used in children and infants' complaints, measles, fevers, and eruptive skin complaints. An infusion made from a half ounce of the flowers to a pint of boiling water taken to produce. It was taken warm. Rodale's Illustrated Encyclopedia of Herbs, which is a very good book, by the way. Rodale is known for their organic gardening books, but they've done 2 encyclopedias of herbal medicine. The second, I think, was done in the 80s or maybe even early 90s. It's okay. The old one that was done in the 60s, maybe even late 50s, is fantastic. It really is one of the best American herbals written in the last century. See if you can get a copy. Rodale's Illustrated Encyclopedia of Herbs. I think it's got a green book jacket on it. Very plain book. You can probably find one used for $3 or $4, and it really is one of the best. Rodale said, during the Middle Ages, various medical uses were found for this flower. Those with constipation or respiratory problems drank the juice of the seed mixed with chicken stock or sweetened water, which we've already discussed. The Complete Book of Herbs by Leslie Bremnes, I guess Bremness, says that the high linoleic acid content of the oil makes it useful for lowering blood cholesterol, and states infuse flowers as a laxative, diuretic, and a perspiration inducer to alleviate skin conditions. So it would not only break a fever by inducing perspiration, but that could also help with skin conditions. Very interesting. Penelope Odie's The Complete Medicinal Herbal lists the properties of safflower only as laxative, diuretic, and anti-inflammatory. That's a quite good book as well. Penelope Odie's book has some really some great ideas in it. Anyway, she's one that, if I remember correctly, and I believe I'm right about this. She's one that's sort of like Michael Moore and some of the others, kind of tried to synthesize various traditions into a Western system of herbal energetics. And a good book. Interestingly, the most complete listing for safflower is from a book I rarely utilize. It's the How To Herb book by Velma J. Keith and Montine Gordon, it's a good book. It's got some craft ideas and like making pomanders. We discussed pomanders last week. But the How To Herb book, it talks about potpourris and how to make perfumes. It's not a book I use a lot medicinally, but a great idea for natural dyes. It gets into all that. Anyway, if you want to make crafts and various things you might take to a farmer's market, definitely recommend that book. Uh, Safflower, they list as diaphoretic, digestive, and laxative. Safflower is a natural digestive aid. It aids in the utilization of sugar in fruit, and also utilization of oils. It contains natural hydrochloric acid. It soothes and coats the entire digestive tract, helps heal the walls of the intestines and diverticulitis, very important, stimulates glandular secretions in the intestines, relieves gas, has mild laxative action in the bowels, acts as a diuretic, has the ability to remove sticky phlegm from the body, helps heal lesions, and helps cholesterol in the body. Neutralizes uric acid and lactic acid. Uric acid holds hardened deposits in joints that leads to gout and arthritis. These acids are also the cause of kidney stones. So that in itself, I mean, and really that should be far more well known, that safflower can help with gout and kidney stones by neutralizing uric acid and lactic acid. They recommended it for acid stomach, appetite, arthritis, colds, diabetes, digestion, as a diuretic, for diverticulitis, fevers, flu and influenza, flatulence, gas, gout, heartburn, hypoglycemia, kidney stones, lesions, the liver, measles, delayed menstruation, to promote perspiration, scarlet fever, skin disease, water retention, and yellow jaundice. So obviously, it's a quite useful book. I probably need to reread the How to Herb book. There's probably a lot more information in there than I remember. But Plants for a Future says that safflower commonly grown for a food plant, but has a wide range of medicinal uses. Modern research has shown that the flowers contain a number of medicinally active constituents and can, for example, reduce coronary heart disease and lower cholesterol levels. It is alterative. That means it kind of slowly brings the body back to health, sort of like a tonic. Analgesic means reduce pain. Antibacterial, antiphlogistic, which means it reduces inflammation and fever. That's a hard one to pronounce. It's good for the liver. We'll go with that. It's good for the liver. It treats tumors and stomatitis, inflamed stomach. The flowers are anti-cholesteremic. Cholesterolemic means it reduces cholesterol. Diaphoretic means it helps with a fever. Emmenagogue breeds on menses. Laxative and purgative, sedative and stimulant. They're used to treat menstrual pains and complications by promoting a smooth menstrual flow, and were ranked third in a survey of 250 anti-fertility plants. In domestic practice, the flowers are used as a substitute or adulterant for saffron, also used in treating infants' complaints such as measles, fevers, eruptive skin complaints. Externally, they are applied to bruises, sprains, skin inflammations, wounds, etc. The flowers are harvested in the summer, can be used fresh or dry. The plant is febrifuge, also helps with fever, sedative, sudorific, and vermifuge. And sudorific, I promised to tell you what that meant last week. And I think I actually told you wrong. I think I said it was wound healing. Sudorific actually means it helps induce sweating. So there's just so many of these archaic terms that are no longer used, except among geeky herbalists that like to use archaic terms. They're definitely not used much, if at all, in medical schools anymore, which we end up speaking very different languages. It's just a term that means it helps with sweating. So anyway, it helps induce sweating. And vermifuge, of course, means it helps get rid of intestinal parasites, worms and such. When combined with lingisticum, it is said to have a definite therapeutic effect upon coronary diseases. And lingisticum is OSHA root. It's somewhat of a rare herb that grows usually high in the mountains. And there's another herb we've discussed before that can usually be substituted for it. Yeah, that was in my show on antiviral herbs. I'll have to look that up. I'll try to remember to mention that in last week's show. Or if you want to go back to the show on herbal antivirals, I'm sure I know I talked quite a bit about that. So the thing I remember about it is it's essentially interchangeable with OSHA, and it can be grown at lower elevations in warmer climates. You can actually cultivate it in the garden, so you don't have to worry about over harvesting a fairly rare plant. And the other thing about OSHA is bears love it. So one of the dangers in harvesting OSHA from the wild is you might end up getting attacked by a grizzly bear if they smell it. The seed is diuretic, purgative, and tonic. It is used in the treatment of rheumatism and tumors, especially inflammatory tumors of the liver. The oil is charred and used to heal sores and to treat rheumatism. In Iran, the oil is used as a salve, I guess I should say, for treating sprains and rheumatism. So, to put it mildly, whereas safflower is a fairly common plant used in food, especially in bad ways, like for making margarine, which is really bad for you. Butter's so much better for you than margarine. Anyway, and even used for making fuel. The medicinal uses are, you know, pretty impressive, really pretty profound. And this is one we should probably be using a whole lot more. Uh, Occasionally, you still see it showing up in laxatives and such, especially for children. But it has so many more uses, so many more really important uses. So, y'all, that's it. Have a great week. Have a great week. Remember our honored dead, those who died, so we can be here doing what we're doing today in a free-ish country. And how about if we, like I said, try to live up to their sacrifice and make this the country they died for once again? If it ever was, it certainly isn't now. So, have a great one. I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.